Let's review the mechanics training screen. Notice we have two presentations in this display. One is the live CO2 signal down below, so that as we work on the mechanics of breathing, we can monitor CO2 to be sure that CO2 level is in the right range, that is above 35 millimeters of mercury. Regardless of what we do with mechanics, from a respiratory point of view, it is critical that we stay above 35 millimeters of mercury. Otherwise, we slip into overbreathing, we unbalance the chemistry, and we suffer the consequences of poor respiration. The purpose of this overall display is to learn to regulate mechanics while maintaining proper levels of CO2. That is, we can change rate by changing the speed of the ball. We can change the exhale and inhale configuration by changing the shape of the triangle. We can change the transitional times between inhale and exhale also by arranging a different kind of configuration of the triangles. We will demonstrate this. First, let's click on the upper display to make sure that that is the screen that we can work on. The icons on the left, in essence, will now regulate what we see on the upper presentation. Let's go now to the icon on the far left. That's a special features icon that has been designed specifically to assist us in making changes in the mechanics of breathing. This has been described in detail in another lesson in this CD manual. Let's click on the icon and modify some settings. Here we see target breath rate. Let's change this from 6 to 12. Now, to make that take hold, we have to click on the outside of the window. Now notice that the ball with the triangles is going at a faster rate than it was before. The person tracking this ball, if doing it accurately and precisely, will be breathing at 12 breaths per minute. Let's freeze the ball for a second by clicking on the freeze icon. Notice that what we're trying to do here is help the person track this template so that we can vary the mechanics dimensions of breathing. The person breathes out as the ball comes down as it is now. When you get to the very bottom of the triangles here, this represents a transition period going from the exhale to the inhale. Then the person breathes in as the ball goes up, and there's a brief transitional period between the inhale and the exhale here. Over here on the left, not only can we set the breath rate, which we have done now with 12, but we can set the inhale time versus the exhale time. That is, if we change the inhale time to, say, be 20%, this side of the triangle here will become steeper. The exhale time will become 80%, and the exhale side of the triangle will become flatter. Thus, as the person breathes, they'll be spending 20% of their time inhaling and 80% of their time exhaling. Then we can set the hold time. This really has reference to transition time. This is not breath holding. This is transition or pausing. If we set the hold inhale time to, say, 25%, what that means is that 25% of this part of the triangle will be the pause here at the top, and the other 75% will be the breathing in. If we set the exhale at 25%, that means that 75% of the time you'll be breathing out, and 25% of the time you will spend in transition from exhale to inhale. Let's unfreeze the freeze icon so that we see the ball moving again. Now let's set the hold exhale or the transition exhale time from 15 to 30. We'll erase 15, type in 30, click outside of the window, and notice now at the bottom of the triangles there's a much longer transitional period painted in these colors that you see. We can do the same thing with hold inhale time. Let's modify the inhale time. Let's make it only 30%. We'll erase 40, type in 30, and then click outside of the box. You'll notice that exhale time has changed to 70 now, and you'll notice that there's a much steeper rise on the left side of the triangle and a quieter decline on the right side of the triangle. So the way we have it set now is this ball, if the person tracks this appropriately, they will be breathing at 12 breaths per minute. They'll be spending 30% of their time inhaling, 70% of their time exhaling. 15% of the time of the inhale will be in the transition between the inhale and the exhale, and 30% of the time of the exhale will be spent in the transition between the exhale and the inhale. Let's click out of the breath parameter box by clicking up on the X in the far corner. Now notice some additional things. We have the end tidal CO2 in a small window at the top of the graph that gives you the last 20-second average for end tidal CO2. In this case, 37.2, now 36.9. And on the right, we have breaths per minute, the last 20-second average having been 21.8 breaths per minute. Notice that there are some instructions on the screen as well. On the left, it simply gives the basic considerations about tracking the ball. Inhale as the ball rises, exhale as it falls. Pause after the inhale and exhale as shown in the triangles. On the right, it says keep your CO2 levels above the threshold line. Set different breathing rates with the icon at the lower left. That is the one icon here, as I have just demonstrated for you. Now, if you want further information about mechanics training, we go up to the drop-down menu next to Mechanics Training, click and select Information Mechanics Training. You'll notice here on the left we have Breathing Mechanics screen displays. This gives us information about the screen, about those features that we have just finished describing. On the right, we have Breathing Mechanics Testing and Training, and it tells you exactly what to do. It tells you about the different CO2 levels. It tells you about different breathing rates. That is, with breathing rates, for example, we have 3 to 7 breaths per minute as meditative, 8 to 12 is slow, 13 to 17 is normal, 17 to 21 is fast, 22 to 26 is very fast. And again, we already know the various CO2 levels as we've described in various other of the displays. Optimal breathing at 40 to 45 millimeters of mercury, 35 to 40 millimeters of mercury for normal breathing, mild overbreathing 30 to 35, moderate 25 to 30, severe 20 to 25. Again, you can scroll down through this documentation here and it'll tell you how to test yourself, how to vary the rates, how to vary the depth of your breathing, how does breathing depth affect your end tidal CO2, and you can scroll down here and see how does exhalation affect your end tidal CO2, various considerations there, how do diaphragmatic and chest breathing affect end tidal CO2, and it gives you various ways of testing yourself, how do direct end tidal CO2 changes affect you, and so on. There's a lot of information here that will be well worth your time to review. Now let's go back and reselect the Mechanics Training display screen.